Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 13 of the Sajin Photography Podcast. My name is Jason Teal and I'm recording this on Friday the 13th at 1300 hours. So it's going to be, well, a rather interesting, possibly unlucky episode. We'll see, but it is Friday the 13th and it's a rainy one to boot here in Ulsan, South Korea. And we got a lot to talk about today. I am going to touch on a little bit of luck or unlucky kind of stuff here. But for the most part, I want to talk about my recent shoot at Ganjeolgot in Ulsan. I guess you could call it that. It's kind of on the outskirts, but it was a good shoot, but in a sense, also kind of unlucky in other ways. So I do want to mix in that kind of feeling or vibe just to sort of go with the theme, because it is the 13, 13, 13, 13, that sort of thing. So let's get things underway. Now that I got all the Friday the 13th stuff out of the way, I did get out to Ganjeolgot a little while ago and got some good stuff. Now, if you don't know much about the area, this is the sunrise capital of Ulsan, and it's directly kind of in competition with Pohang. And before I get too much into it, I did go here actually pretty much the exact same time of year. I think I got out a little bit earlier, but I did record an episode on my Picture This segment, I think probably back in Season 3, Episode 19, but that's basically this time last year. And I sort of talked a little bit about what Ganjeolgot is and pretty much the exact same experience. But again, when we're talking about luck, there is luck when it comes to being a landscape photographer or any photographer for that matter, whether you're doing event photography or stuff like that. And anyone that sort of tells you that there isn't is sort of full of shit. And I put it into the category of the people that shoot in only manual mode and, get it right in camera the first time. Fuck that. And the reason why I say it with that much disdain is because, yeah, you should get your shots right in camera the first time, but you never talk to, say, like a baker who, I always get it right in the oven the first time. No, that's just the stupidest shit that you can ever say. And I will put this out there, guys, if you're talking about like straight out of the camera or things like that, just fucking stop, because you should always be getting it right in camera. Nobody goes out and picks up their camera and goes, well, I'm not even going to fucking focus this because I'm just going to do it in Photoshop. No one talks about like that. No one does. And the people who go on and on about getting it right and, they're full of shit. And 9 times out of 10, they're probably not a good of photographer as they think that they are. And whenever someone does that, or when they're like, I only shoot in manual because I want to feel, fuck you. Like aperture priority is there for a reason, and to be honest, like I know a lot of people that even just throw their camera in like the fully automatic mode, because here's the thing. You stand a greater chance of fucking up a shot when you're postulating like a douchebag, only shooting in manual. And this is something I learned when I got into film. Like the amount of times I fucked up shots by not getting the exposure right or not nailing like the exact exposure from my exposure meter, not compensating for maybe light and shadows. But if you're out there and you really need to get a shot, I know a lot of people that will just tell you, you know what, pop it into fully automatic mode and get the shot, then fuck around with the dials, that sort of thing. But going back to originally what I was talking about is the fact that there is luck in regards to sometimes for landscape photography. Where my luck comes from is sometimes you get out there, you go to the same location. As I said, I usually go out to Ganjeolgot the beginning of the year to get those sunrise shots, just as sort of like a tradition. And also too, and I'm not going to bullshit you, sometimes I just don't want to go someplace I have no idea the conditions or not. Ganjeolgot is always the same. There's parking. As I said before in season 3, episode 19 of that Picture This segment, there's also a robot cafe that's open 24 hours, so I can grab my hot coffee on the ride home, and that's about it. It's a default place where I can go and get some good shots. Now, in this particular day, I don't think luck was with me that day. It wasn't as bad as what I said for the Gyeongju one, where I showed up and like all of my batteries have died and stuff like that. Like, but in the same sense, I don't think that's necessarily unlucky. It's just poor planning. In the case of luck, what I mean by that is when you get out there and for a landscape and seascape, sometimes the skies are amazing. Sometimes the waves are just crashing in. And other times you get like what I had the other day here at Ganjeolgot. Skies are meh, you know, and the waves, meh. And so you got to kind of play with what you've got. And that's where I really want to kind of tell people to play with the surroundings. And I think that's what sort of you get into with long-term study of landscape and seascape photography is you don't need to prey on or play with the skies and whatnot. If they're not going to be in your favor, that's fine. Then you pull out your filters, you look at the foreground, you look at the background, and this is where I really like sort of the Ganjeolgot area and all the way down to sort of Onsan and the petrochemical area. And what I like about it is that there's a lot of stuff going on. Okay, so in this particular day, there is a ton of ships going back and forth, and they're just a little bit too far off for really me to like sort of capture what it is that they're doing. And that's a key point there. Like your eyes will see stuff and you'll be like, oh yeah, I think that's going to be a really great shot. But again, you're not taking pictures with your eye. You can only go with what you've got in your bag and on your camera. So for me, sometimes I'm mainly shooting with the like the longest lens I think I've got is the 24 to 105 with me at most times. I've got a 70 to 200, but I mean, really, again, like when you're thinking about shots, do you really want to lug around that heavy piece of glass to maybe use it? And so most of the times I've got my ultra wide angle, I've got my 24 to 105, and maybe I've got my 50 mil in there just to sort of dick around with some, you know, shallow depth of field shots if I feel like it. But in that case, like I just couldn't get the reach that I wanted to. So I stepped back and I looked at sort of what I could do with this situation. And again, I'm going to reiterate, I've been here 1,000 times. I've shot pretty much every single rock along that shore. And I really didn't have a lot of space to work with because strangely enough, there were a ton of people out there at that moment in time. And I didn't really want to get into their shots and I didn't want to get them into mine. So I stuck close to the shore. I scrambled on the rocks and I stepped back from the scene and tried to figure out what I could do with this. Now, as you know, I am rocking a K&F or Kent Faith or whatever they call it, like the Square Pro filters. I've got a really good 10-stop filter with a CPL filter that's built into the housing. I love that setup. So the first thing I do relatively before the sun comes up is to slap on that 10-stop filter and make some long exposures. And for the most part, you're looking at like plus of 5 minutes, depending on how the light is hitting. That was okay. Like, I mean, what I'm looking at in these shots is mostly how the rocks play with the smooth waters and the horizon line. That's exactly kind of the thought process. So when I am composing the shots, I'm looking at like where the rocks are, what's in the foreground and what's in the background. Because again, like with a day like today, I wasn't lucky with the clouds, because when you have a 10-stop filter on and you have clouds and you're taking an exposure for plus of 5 minutes, those clouds move. Your eyes aren't going to really pick them up, but once you see that shot, it looks fantastic. But again, this is what I'm saying. I wasn't lucky. I've got nothing in the sky, nothing. So I had to play around with the rocks and sort of build up that composition. Now, looking at the shots I got, and I'll include them as chapter markers in this episode, it was okay. But what I really did was, once I sort of figured out what I wanted, I pulled out that filter and put it away. What I got then were the waves sort of crashing, so I didn't really work on the long exposure this time. And what that meant was I can get some complementary colors. I think that's the phrase that people use. So in the shots I'll post, I've got the yellows and oranges with the darker blues on the water. And I think really that made much better pictures than what I got with the long exposure. And it's tough because you want those long exposures. You're waiting, you're freezing your hands off or other parts of your body, and you're really wanting these long exposures to come out, but sometimes it just doesn't work well with the scene. So I switched out the filter. I just used the basically the CPL, and for the most part just regular non-filter shooting, I guess you would call that filterless shooting. And I got some good shots, but again, nothing that you're really going to write home about. Was I lucky? I would say, again, going back to that luck, when you're talking about luck for a photographer, especially a landscape photographer, yeah, you're going to be talking about times where you go out and you're expecting nothing and the sky just explodes. Or you add that to the time where if you go out to a place that you've been to 1,000 times and maybe you turn the corner and holy shit, there's this new angle or there's this new little cove and you've got that sky and you've got all this other cool stuff. That to me is getting lucky. Unlucky, well, you can go on with that. You can drop your camera into the water or snap a tripod leg or a myriad of other unlucky moments. For the most part, I typically deal with just, for me, what sets me off, aside from breaking my shit, is when you are getting up at 5 or 4 in the morning and you drive all the way out and nothing. And the worst part, the times that I'm truly shouting into the steering wheel of my little Spark car is the times where you've checked the weather reports, you've looked at the everything that you did, and you get out there and it's like fucking overcast, or like you get a sunrise that just sort of goes and it's nothing, and then you've got to drive your ass all the way back home with nothing, because it's not even worth taking your camera out of your bag to get anything. So that to me sometimes is lucky. But being Friday the 13th, and it's yeah, as I said before, I started this at 1300 hours, and it's the 13th episode. So kind of a coincidence. I'm gonna play it safe today, and maybe just be a little bit more cautious this weekend. I'm not sure where I'm gonna be heading out, but I do want to get some of the what do you call it? Jusongjori, the columnar joint rock formations. That's what's kind of caught my eye. Sadly, though, it's probably going to rain all weekend, but I don't know. Maybe that would make something interesting. I don't know, but I really want like a good sunrise. Like I want something that's going to explode on me, not literally, especially given the situation right now in North Korea, but something that will really light up the sky. That's not making it any better. Okay, I want a good sunrise. Bright colors, not bombs. All right, well, with that being said, thank you very much, and I hope you're enjoying these episodes. I am trying to make an effort to try and get out and get more content out to you on a weekly basis. So if you like it, please share and follow. Thank you very much.